brother.
Hey, happy 1 year, man.
Happy 1 year, right? We got some exciting stuff coming up in year 2. We're really, really happy to announce that that we are just signed an ambassadorship program with Schedulicity. Schedulicity is a scheduling app, and they've been kind enough to help us out this next year.
Yeah, we met them in LA when we did the Salon Digital Summit, and they really believed in what we were doing and how we were doing it, and so they wanted to know how they can partner up with us to even reach more listeners and give what we give.
That's right. So with our partnership with Schedulicity, we will be able to reach more hairdressers, and we'll be able to bring a lot more content and get to a lot more hair shows. So hopefully we can see you guys out there in the hair shows when we're there visiting.
Yeah, and they're going to give us some business tips throughout the podcast as well. And I'm so excited that, we're partnering up with people that believe in the same things we believe in.
Yeah, no doubt. That's pretty exciting. So anyway, Schedulicity, once again, big shout out to you, and
thank you for joining
your day off. Silly. Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey, and of course I'm sitting with my best bud, Tony. What's up, Tony?
What's up, homie? What's going on?
You, man.
Yeah, today's guest was that movie, The League of 10,000 or 10,000 Leagues or something like that.
Right.
So when we brought this guy on, and found out his story, that number will play a role into our podcast.
The number 10,000.
The number 10,000.
I mean, well, what did Gavin stupid. What did Malcolm Gladwell say, right? He said you need 10,000 hours to become an expert on anything, right?
Right.
So this guy's definitely an expert because that number 10,000 plays into this conversation.
Yeah, huge role. And anybody who looks for a mentor or for a coach, someone that's going to help you. I mean, this is the guy.
This is the guy, right? So he's today our guest is Gavin Salsbery. He is a business consultant for Summit, but he's done like 10,000 one-on-ones. So like he's done it from like salon owners to newbies on the floor. It's or as Jem Plank refers to as the Boo Bears. He's talked to the Boo Bears and he's talked to salon owners. So he's seen all of our industry. He's seen the struggles, at getting started to and all the way up through salon ownership.
Yeah, exactly. He's a salon owner himself, business consultant. He definitely can help you no matter where you are in your life and in this great industry.
I can't wait to get into his story.
They already know his name. You want to introduce him?
Once again, Mr. Gavin Salsbery, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off.
Hey, thank you guys very much. Very excited.
We're really excited to have you, man. Like I said, we've been talking a lot about what you do and how important it is to our industry.
Yeah. You say the Malcolm Gladwell. I heard you name drop that in that 10,000 times. I don't recall what book that's in. But I remember sitting back on an airplane, reading that and kind of pausing, reflecting and thinking, God, it's hard to see I don't know about you guys, but it's hard to take credit as an expert personally. Because I see myself more as a student than I do an expert. That's just truth.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's working in services that way too. It's like where you serve is where you're needed. So if you're not a student, then you just always miss where you're needed.
Well, it just shows how humbling, he is. You know what I mean? He's not looking at himself in that spotlight. Hey, but I'm the expert. He's a humble guy and he's here to help you. You know what I mean? And he puts the light on you, not himself.
That's right. So, Gavin, tell us how you found the industry or how you got in the industry. Are you a hairdresser or what's that about?
I was born into the industry. So, born in Kokomo, Indiana, 1975. My mother owned a hair salon when I was born. So, I guess I would say I was born into the industry. First grade, when I started riding the school bus, the school bus would actually drop me off at the salon. I was the first kid off the school bus too. So here's kind of a minute detail, but I was the first kid off the school bus. So for me, I didn't really know that other kids were going home. I just thought, aren't all the other kids that I would leave as I'm hopping off the bus and there's up to 30, 40 other kids, I thought they were probably heading to their family business as well.
They're heading to work.
I didn't know.
It's like a work bus, work camp.
That's awesome. Right.
Yeah. So I kind of began there, and then I don't know if you guys have you guys grown up, either one of you,
Well, no,
or were you first generation?
No,
His father was a hairdresser.
yeah, my dad worked
Okay.
in nursing homes, so he did like
Yeah.
3-minute sets and stuff.
My grandfather was a barber, but I was a kid, so I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, so I kind of came from, I owe all of it to my mother. She not only owned a hair salon for, I think it was 43 years. But just growing up that way, I don't think I really realized what I knew about the beauty industry until I got a little bit older. But, for me, a day off of school might be helping something in the salon. I always needed money, right? So my mother was always good about that being a motivation or a carrot, and it would put me in the salon at times. And it started out as just, small little task. And then it just continued on where, I got more involved in the family business as time went on. And then my mother, which I'll talk a little bit about in a little bit later, but she was goal driven. So I grew up with a goal getter, a very, serious goal getter. I'm a foodie, so I love to go to the refrigerator and open up and just kind of stare at what's inside of it. But when I was growing up, I had a kind of a love-hate with my refrigerator, because on the outside, my mother always used the outside of that green Kenmore refrigerator. She would put all of the goals. And I remember before I'd open up the fridge, I'd see my school goals, my sports goals, my just goals that I had. So, I think today I'm grateful for that, but I know there was a point in my life where getting, goals, I had a love-hate relationship with those. And so I grew up with a goal getter, and her number one objective was that I would go to college. She was a single mom. So if you're listening out there, because I know that, I hope this speaks to some of you that are single mothers, you can do it. She raised 2 boys on her own. I'd say I did have a deadbeat dad. And so she really had to hustle, and not only behind the chair, but also with her business. And her number one goal was to get us to college. Now, trust me, if you know me in my core, I am not a collegiate type of human being. I am as social as you can get, and I'm not a scholar. Even though many of my, people who know me now think of me as more of that, I'm just a big giant kid at heart. But I went to college because my mom wanted me to go. So I went to college. I did that. Didn't know what I wanted to do. She let me pick, and I picked theater, and I picked telecommunications, which is really at the time like the emerging cable television. We were just beginning with the internet. And so I did study media quite a bit, and I studied acting and directing and lighting and all of that. And then I moved to California, I'm a dream chaser. So I'm the kid that packed up his car, drove out to Southern California, worked in Hollywood for a few years, worked for the world's first internet broadcast company, Load Television in Hollywood, California.
Okay.
That was pre YouTube, pre-broadcast TV that Mark Zuckerberg ended up selling. But I got involved in media and Hollywood, and after about 3 years, it just wasn't where my heart was. I was more of a Midwestern soul. I was kind of lost. I would say I had a quarter life crisis at 25. I just didn't really know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And thankfully, I came back home. And that's when I really met my mother's business consultant, and who you guys have interviewed, Randy.
Oh, yeah.
Love
Randy. Yeah.
And he was our family business consultant. So he kind of just took me under his wing. And I can tell you more, but pretty much over the last 16 years, 17 years, that's the path I took. He just, thankfully, the timing, luck, and the opportunity, he just saw probably a young 25, 26-year-old that kind of didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And he put me under his wing. And long story short, I just started learning how to help hair salons.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's crazy because your mentor, or your coach, he's a phenomenal guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We've had him on the podcast, like he said, and great things. So I can't wait to get into to how you kind of like developed underneath Randy, and and how you helped 10,000 individuals, or 10,000 uh, just people to achieve their best.
I know. Better their best, right? Better your best.
Yeah.
Gav, so
I'm thinking this new Irish accent that you have. I know.
Let's hear it.
That was it, man. There's no Irish accent, man. So Gav, yeah. So tell us, like, how'd you start into the salons and, like, coaching, broadly?
Yeah, and you know what you say? Did you say Broadway? Broadly. Well, I thought you said, because the first salon I ever walked into to help was Broadway. It was the name of the salon, and I guess I just shadowed it. I had a mentor. I found someone that would pour back into me, which is kind of what I now do today. But he was a servant leader. He poured back into me. He held my hand. He taught me. He pushed me, and really started learning. Just I'd say the basics of success in the beauty industry, and that's standing behind the chair and some of the key metrics that we spend time trying to help others become more aware of. Whether that's there's quite a few, but if you boil it down to 4, I think you're looking at a rebook rate. You guys know this, being stylists for 30 years. There's a big difference between a client that says, "Hey, I got to check my schedule," and a client that commits to you before they even walk out of the building. But to develop that kind of relationship, I think you got to be very intentional. It doesn't just happen by chance. So, I mean, when you look at, I began to really understand the metrics of whether it was rebooking, whether it was an average ticket. An average ticket is very telling of the skill sets, the type of education you have, whether you're doing today, whether it's a balayage, but at some point in time, it would have been, a full highlights, additional services. But that average ticket can be very telling of just your true earning potential and the type of clientele you're working on. And also maybe where either where you're already educated or where you might need more education. And then you're looking at referral development. That's never, obviously today, referrals are on steroids in today's world. If you know what you're doing, I mean, it's crazy to look and think of 17 years ago, I would have sat down with someone, and if you had 3 or 4 referrals in a month, I would have knocked up. Great job. Cool, man. Today, it's not surprising to see 15, 17, 18, and it's just, I mean, it's unbelievable. But referrals and then retail would be the 4th.
Going back to referrals, I guess at that point she was a future service provider or whatever. She was in school at the time, and she got out of school and went right into a suite, and she's booked out like 2 months. It's amazing. She built a book while in hair school. Now she's pretty extraordinary, and her Instagram game is on point. But you're right, man. That's changed our industry completely, and that's just the last few years, right?
100%. Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I learned, you guys, by being a student. If I'm a super honest human. Like when I started, I had so much self-doubt. It was ridiculous. I mean, here I am, 25 and 26. And that first salon that I started in had 80 service providers, did over 2 million in revenue. I mean, trust me, I walked in there under, like, I shouldn't have been walking in there that day. But because of that really focused, that I just turned it internal and said, I got to learn. I got to read more books than the average Joe. I've got to listen better and be an active listener. I've got to pay attention. I got to be self-aware and other things. But I took probably what was, I felt inadequate in truth of serving others. And just, it wasn't long before, you dive in head first with trying to be a student and learn as much as you can. And here's what I'll also say. This isn't rocket science. So it's not like, I don't want to discredit the talent and the I don't know, the skills that it really entails to make 100K in the industry, 125K. I don't want to discredit that, but it's also, I think there's an element of, there's a lot of basic principles of success. And I just took that ride and started listening and then sharing.
So is those 4 bullet points is what you focus on when you're coaching and mentoring people or salons?
I think I think the 3 most important things I focus on is the 3 most important relationships in your life. I focus on one of the 3. It's either your relationship with people, your relationship with money, or your relationship with yourself. Those are your 3 most important relationships. So when I'm sitting down to begin to help someone, I definitely start with goals. Like, just what are your goals? How can I help you? What are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? You guys, I can get on a soapbox about just goals, but in truth, it's sad that too many people either are living in the present and looking to the past, and not enough people are spending mind space thinking of the future and really devising a path and a vision and goals. So I start with the goals, and then the goals are very telling. If you can get someone to really pause, reflect, and kind of dump out what those are. And then it's usually people. I'm working on the relationship side. So that might be client count, referrals, retention of new business, rebooking. Just think of, people smart. How am I dealing with someone that's people smart? A report will tell me that if I really know what I'm looking at. The next one's money smart. Many times people are in financial chaos. I've been there. I've been bankrupt in my life. I've owed $216,000 to the IRS, personal taxes. So, I'm not the type of guy that's going to sit in front of you and say, oh yeah, I'm great, I've done it all. That's not me. I think I look at the money aspect, and I think that's an area inside of our industry where that's a real struggle. And then that last one is self-smart. I think we're very people smart in our industry. We're chameleons. We can read others. We're good at intuitive listening. But when it comes to self-smart, like our own self-initiatives, our beliefs, our actions, our behaviors, we weren't all typically raised in white-collar, goal-driven households. The truth is, many of our industries coming from socioeconomic backgrounds that money and self-smart was not like a key piece of that upbringing. If that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. It's actually alarming how much sense that makes. So what are the secrets? Like, I guess, what are the secrets in even bringing these conversations up? Because some of them can be so touchy. And, I assume when you do these, if you've done 10,000, like, these aren't 10,000 of your closest friends, you're a stranger to a lot of that. So a lot of them. So, when you start a mentoring a program, how do you bring those conversations up and still in a loving way?
Yeah. Which one do you select first? Are they, I guess they have to be open, and I guess there's a way that you're almost like a therapist. You're diving in and trying to feel one of the three that needs to be touched first. How do you select? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, I think servant leadership. So I'm a servant. I'm not a leader. I'm a servant leader. So if I can really get in step with their goals, I think it just goes back to, what are your goals? How can I help you? And I think it does help to earn the right. Why am I here? So if I were coaching the two of you, I'd want to really state my authentic intention. I'm here to help. I'm not going to judge. I'm just if I want to learn about what it is that you want out of life, how I can help you with the aspects of your business, your personal and professional goals. And, Michael Cole always says that a mentor is a welcomed intruder. And I think that's really true. So I think it begins there. And I just begin by listening. I don't have an agenda. I don't have a specific objective. it's just to serve them. And let's be truthful, not everybody's going to be open to that. So that's another thing. Just because this big flipping number of 10,000, how many of those people were willing? How many of those people were open? And I'd be lying to you if I said every one of them, every one of them. So I would just hope that, that 20% of them, that would give me, if I can get 2 out of 10 to really be open. Now, obviously I would like more, but it starts with, I think, just them understanding my intention, me understanding what they want out of life, and beginning to just have a conversation.
Yeah, like you said earlier, a lot of people might feel inadequate, or they're just very self-conscious. So they're only going to tell you what they want you to hear. They're not going to truly open up so they can maybe get to the root of the problem or the issue that's holding them back maybe. But people, money, and self. I want to get into those. Like, what are some of the techniques or some of the things that people need to think inwardly to how to help themselves in those 3 areas?
Yeah, I love that. Great question. When I think of money, if I just start with money smart, if every stylist today that's listening out there could just tomorrow walk into the salon, step behind the chair, and all I would want you to know is, what is your goal for that day to live the lifestyle that you want to live? Now, you might think, well, that's easier said than done, but I know that there's a tracking app, and I'm sure there's others, methods or ways that you can figure this. But if you were just to go to the summitsalon.com website, there's actually it's called a magic day calculator. Let's create some magic. All you have to do is plug in all your life expenses, your car payment, your cell phone, your mortgage payment, your rent, your retirement, every bill that you can think of, groceries, clothing allowance. It asks you probably about 24 different expenses. You plug that in, and it's going to be a very true reality of what your average month needs to be. It'll break it down weekly, daily. And I think when it starts with money, what are you standing behind the chair for? And at some point, I would coach or mentor to try to come up with, what's the objective here? How much does it need to be? One last thing is, money just gives you choices. You know that from interviewing probably some great people. But I see what resonated with me years ago was when I learned that money's made on fact and it's lost on emotion. We are an industry that is just governed by emotion. And so I think a lot of times you get the opposite of what I'm talking about. You get a stylist that's standing behind the chair today that has no clue what they need to do each day. They're anxious about the bills that just came in the mailbox yesterday. They know they've got, something on the horizon, that expenses. I mean, what is it? 52% of all society lives paycheck to paycheck. So, apply that inside of our industry and you get this highly emotional state of mind that doesn't even know how much money they need to be doing. And I think that's why they hop around to different salons. They're kind of looking for something they don't even know what they need.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
Complete, I loved what he said too.
But I guess it takes discipline, right? You got to want it, or you got to want it for yourself.
So what are the ways that you kind of coach them to generate more money into their day?
Well, I think you got to look at, do they have a career path? So if you're self-employed, you're in a suite, is there some kind of, what are you looking at? Do you look at anything? Awareness precedes change. Awareness precedes change. So what are they aware of? Are they looking at how many new clients they're seeing each day, each month, each week? How many total clients did they see for the month? The simplest way, you guys, is probably just to look at your overall productivity. If you just added up how many hours you scheduled yourself to take appointments, and let's just say it's 30 hours a week, four times a month, you're looking at 120 hours of open, available schedule time. Now, if you just add it up, how much time last month did I fill that? Was it half of that time? Was it 70% of that time? There's a certain point when it starts to get to be about 70% of your available time is literally just full, booked. How do you make more money? At some point, the supply and demand price increase comes into play. So once I've reached that 70% plus productivity level, I would be coaching you to look at when's your next price increase. Usually it's between $3, $5, $7, maybe on some higher ticket services.
Hold on for a sec. So that's 70% over, did you say over a month?
Yeah. So what's 70% of 120? 84. So if 84 hours of your 120 is booked with people, I would assume just by that one metric that your business is starting to be at a place that you've got over 70% productivity. That means you've got retained business, repeat request business, and you could be looking at moving your pricing up. I always joke with you guys and say this. I don't know if it's like the 11th commandment in cosmetology school, but I think a lot of kids take it, and that's thou shalt not raise prices. And if you hang out with me long enough, you're going to find, and I didn't make this stuff up. I just learned how is the 100K, 125K hairstylist doing it. Over a 20, 30-year span, they probably have had a price increase nearly every, if you just did it on time, probably every 2 to 3 years, they're bumping them up. To bump them up is one thing, but not knowing when to bump them up is when people get in trouble. When they bump them up and their productivity is only 50% or 40%. That's when it can really.
It's interesting because the number that I've heard for years was like 3 weeks booked out, right? So completely booked out for 3 weeks is time for a bump. But I kind of like how
that's 75%,
right?
Right out of 4 weeks.
Well, right, but if you're 3 weeks bumped out, you're always going to be 3 weeks booked out, right? Yeah. So it's like by him saying 70%, that makes way more sense to me because that's, you're 100% booked out 3 weeks in advance, then you're always going to be 100% booked out 3 weeks in advance, right?
Right.
So then that seems like psychologically that's a much harder kind of like thought to think, but I that was such a weird sentence, but but I love the 70%, right? So over a month, now it's time. It's at 70%.
Right. Because if you focus on the 3 weeks booked in advance, and if you're say 70% booked, you're not going to ever raise your prices. So you're always going to kind of be stuck.
Exactly. Love this.
Love this.
Love that 70%. All right, Gav, that's a huge takeaway, man. What else you got for us?
I think for the self-smart, I try to lead people into, it goes back to what the personal goals are. And self-smart, I mean, you're getting into now more of the psychology of behaviors. There's so much. What's cool about our current times is how much available information is there to learn. I mean, it's crazy. Like podcasts like yours, I can go Google something. I can go to Amazon and buy a book and have it at my house in a day or two. But I think when it comes to self-smart, I think you're getting into the self-words, self-worth. Do you think it's possible that a human being can earn 100K and not have self-worth? I mean, I don't want to say that's impossible, but self-worth. And that's why that price increasing plays a major role, not just because your metrics are there and it's time, but also just for your own self. Developing inner self-worth is, I think, a huge aspect of success standing behind the chair. And then self-esteem, self-confidence. I didn't learn anything about self-confidence until you start really having conversations about self-confidence. And it hit me one day, and I don't know if it was from what someone said or what I read, but you cannot have confidence without failure. It's impossible.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I mean, and broadly speaking, again, I mean, that's kind of what we've learned in the podcast, right? Like everybody that's ever had success has done it with great failure. And Yeah, just that there's been like nobody succeeds without failures. That's, you have to realize that's the path.
People don't believe that. People, I'm like the majority of hairstylists, they don't believe that. Now I know, like, I can get super passionate, but I think they'll hear you say that. They're listening now. But how many people want to go out and say, all right, let's go make some mistakes. I'm excited. Let's go do it. But here's what is it? Fall off horse 7 times, get back up 8. That's life. And I get to fly around. I think I've flown over 3 million air miles in the last 15, 16 years. And why I even bring this up is because to me, there's a little bit of life in those metal capsules up in the sky. And what I see in the name of life is what people believe or perceive that the people sitting up in the front versus the people sitting in the back. And here's what I know. First off, if I'm frugal. I've never paid for first class, nor I don't think I ever would. But I get upgraded all the time because of all of my status of flying so much. And here's what but many years I sat in the back. And what I think I've learned is up in the front, those people have made more mistakes. They've been through more tragedy, triumph, chaos, death, despair, wrong side of the tracks. I mean, you name it. They've been through stuff that I know I've sat there before and heard someone share a story, and I'm like, holy cow, how did you get back up on the horse after you fell off that time? And I just think that is a skill that it's hard to teach that skill, but it's a skill of getting back up on that horse the 8th time. Because oftentimes we quit. We don't have the self-confidence. We don't have the self-esteem. We let a couple of things, get us down. And before you know it, I think the road to average and just getting by becomes our life. And we forget to believe, dream. And I think that's why I thank God there's mentors and coaches out there, because I know personally I need that. There's times where I need, my mind kind of gets off into believing in stuff that I don't think is real true. And I thank God people can center me and get me on the right path.
Dude, I've just got little hairs on the back of my neck that's like kind of stood up, right? It's like, man, that is so true. So many people give up, or they just fall short of their greatness because they just, they settle.
Hey, well, look at this. We're in a time right now that I think hairstylists are the last touch, service, relationship, business left. I'm talking like no more exists. I look at my grandfather. He knew his auto mechanic, his banker, his insurance agent, his barber, his grocer. He knew everybody when he walked out of his house. And as time has continued to evolve, I got a 6-year-old. I don't know her doctor. Her doctors they're specialists. We don't really have a tight connection with a doctor. Dentist. We don't have an old dentist like we once had. We see different dentists when we're there. I think as today and moving forward, why I'm so passionate about what you can do with your career in the beauty industry is because we have we're the last of the Mohicans. We literally are the last human being out there that can provide face-to-face touch, influence, caregiving. I mean, it's amazing. And I don't know if 50 years ago someone would have thought that the hairstylist would be the last one standing, but the Flowbee didn't work. And I don't think a robot is ever going to figure out how to connect and do service. It's awesome. I think it is amazing. The next 25 years for a stylist is going to be a very fruitful endeavor if they're people smart, money smart, and self smart.
Yeah, he's right. It's kind of like one of the last industries that it is. There's human touch, connection. There's so much sharing, emotional connection. I think you're right. I think you're spot on.
Definitely. And, he brought up doctors and dentists, but even with them, we're the ones that they want to see, hopefully.
Right. You might go see the doctor's busy. So the physician, the PA comes in, physician assistant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they take your vitals and you know what I mean? And it's just, there's so much to it now when your client comes to see you. And although you do have an assistant, but you're providing the service.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just, once again, I mean, it's where people come for, to be touched and to feel beautiful and to, that's the other thing too, we need to address, Gavin. Like, just so many people forget the gift that we have, so many people not so many people. I mean, I'm sure we're all guilty of it too, but you've got the opportunity to change someone's day, and you've got the opportunity. Nobody comes to us because they don't want to feel beautiful. Right? Nobody. They come to us because they want to feel beautiful because of something that, for whatever reason, and just don't forget that. Don't forget that while you're providing service to these people, that they're there to feel beautiful, and that's the gift that our industry has to give.
Yeah, but my client Mike doesn't want to feel beautiful.
Well, yes, he does on some level. Mike does want to feel beautiful. Otherwise, he'd look like Ted Krasinski.
People are broken. We own a salon here in Minnesota. So, I mean, yes, I could tell you all about the trials and tribulations of coaching. But I also know, just having a salon here in Minnesota, the people are broken. Not only staff, but also just the client. And what we provide, as we continue to become more, I'm holding up my phone, more really connected here and less connected to our neighbors, and really have those old school relationships, it just is, the value is so much greater. And then I'm going to geek out and just tell you this is, it'll be interesting to see where it's going to continue to evolve to, because we're underproducing licensed hairstylists. So if you just, and I've never seen this, I'd love to see this. Imagine two graphs. One graph is the US population of all of the, I know we're I think we're around 320 million people now, but we're projected to be at 400 million, I believe, by 2040. Okay. Now, if you just can envision a graph going upwards as population continues in America, then imagine looking at a line below it that's just license holders, total cosmetology license holders. It's not keeping up with the population demand. So what does that mean? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but all it smells like, sounds like, feels like is the value of those licensed hairstylists. As time goes on, there's going to be less stylists for the population, which means supply and demand is going to be different. And pricing. I mean, it's not out there to think that the average haircut one day in 25 years might be $100 haircut, because it's just hard to, I bet you in 1970, you could have called 5 or 6 salons and would have had more likelihood to find availability. Today, try to pick up a phone or go online on a Saturday and see if you can find availability. It's getting more and more difficult. So it's a great place to be right now, is I guess my point. And it's going to get even brighter if you keep pouring back into yourself, having a career path, finding a coach and a mentor, really continuing to readjust your beliefs, letting go of false beliefs, things that aren't true, though you've told yourself that, or maybe even someone in your inner circle told you and it's not true. But and I'll finish it with, just goes back to people smart, understanding people. I think that takes a lot of practice, but also just the behaviors of people keep evolving. Eye contact is becoming less and less of a thing, because this is our eye contact, on a phone. And just being aware of, but there is a greater need for that people relationship and the people smart. Money smart, we got to get money smart. If you can't make a living and really get ahead in the American beauty industry right now, something's messed up. Seriously, something's messed up. You've got addictions, you've got behavioral, challenges with relationship with money, impulsiveness, trust me, I've been there. I'm an addict. You know, I had 2010 or December 10th, 2010, I stopped drinking. And part of what, for me, it was this impulsive behaviors. I just took that into money too. The first year I quit drinking, I had $10,000 in my bank account. I'd never saved $1 prior to that. So if you're not developing more money, management, money, relationship with money, I would just you got to find the purpose though. But if you can find greater purpose about why you would want even more money and what that would represent in your life, I mean, it is here today in the American beauty industry. And then self-smart. To me, that's something I'll be 85 years old, probably reading something on a beach about something that might help me be a better human, you know?
Amen.
Amen. I love that.
So how can our listeners learn more about you and find you? If how do we find you?
I think the easiest way is to go to the Summit Salon website. That would be the probably easiest way. And we offer a lot of different services. We even offer virtual coaching now. So like this, using Zoom, and we do virtual coaching. And it could be for a salon owner. It could be for a self-employed stylist. It could be for a suite owner who's just beginning to build their business. But I would lead them to Summit. And then through the Summit, there's an area on the website that they can fill out a form and have someone follow up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
That's pretty cool.
Do they answer, like, I guess the form asks questions so you guys pair up the perfect person for them, or is that how that works, or just you get to know them a little bit better?
Yeah, there's a field where they get to select like what they're looking for, and then there's a comments area. So we definitely, when those leads come in, we do try and pair up who might be the best fit for that person.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that we in the future too, we're going to do a couple more podcasts with Gavin. So Mr. Gavin, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off.
I am honored and grateful. Thank you.
Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple of months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.